For this video, I just wanted to demonstrate how to set up the RMAN to back up the database whilst the database is still running. This is good in a production environment if you've got lots of activity going on and there isn't like a good window to do a backup. So actually this is like hot backups. The alternative is to shut the database down and literally just copy the database files to another location and the control file to another location. Then you can just restore those files back to a server that's set up with the same configuration fairly straightforwardly. So I've logged in. I'll just make a directory called backups, and then just create a simple shell script which will allow us to do the backup with the RMAN in one go. I'll type this through, but I'll speed it up slightly in the final video. So we'll use this script supplied with XE to set up the environment. Then for RMAN we'll execute the following script that we'll type in now until we reach the EOF. First command is to connect to the target. Turn auto backup on, and this will back up the control file automatically at the start, then when we request it to back up the control file to a specific file, and then at the end when we turn this off again. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to make the backup to the backups folder that are created in the home directory. And in a production environment, you would either want to do this to another disk directly so that it's accessible without having to copy it again, or back it up locally and then copy it somewhere off-site. So I'll set the retention policy to be 7 days. You might want to set this longer or shorter, depending on how often you want to run the backup. Now the next bit is to actually back up the database. So RMAN uses a concept of channels. So I've named my channel RMAN back CH01, and it's for going to disk. So the alternative is tape really. So the first step that I'll do is to back up the database files, and we can have a look to see what these substitution variables are afterwards. Next, I just want to execute a small bit of SQL once the data files are backed up to force a log switch and archive all the current logs. So this will ensure that our database files have been backed up and that the archive or the log files with all of the committed activity up to this point is also archived, and we can include that with our backup, which means that we have effectively a full database backup to this point. And then finally we'll do a backup of the control file. Now that we've done a backup of our database files, the archive logs and the current control file, we can check that all the files are accessible to RMAN. Use this cross-check backup. Then we can also delete any files that are obsolete, and delete any files that are expired based on our retention policy. And finally release the channel that we were using. So this is a fairly simple script to back up our Oracle database using RMAN without having to shut the database down first. So make this file executable. And then let's run it. So that's complete. Just go back up. We can see that the control file was backed up. The retention policy has been updated. The database files were backed up. Then the control file was backed up again. Then the archive logs, or the current logs, were archived, and those were also backed up. And the control file was again backed up here because we'd set the auto backup on the control file. And then finally the cross check then checks that each of the files that have been logged as being backed up are actually available, and checking that there's any obsolete backups. So if we have a look in the backups directory, we now have the database files, which is the main database files. The control file have 3 backups of it. This one is compressed and these 2 aren't. And then the archive logs are also compressed. So these files here together, obviously we only need one version of the control file, but these files together allow us to restore the database up to the current point, and will include any transactions that were committed during the backup. If you've seen the other video where I've set up the multiplexing of the redo logs, then this is where that multiplexing the redo logs to another location comes in. Because then when you would restore the database to capture the activity that is ongoing now in the restoration, to bring it right up to the last committed transaction in the live environment, then you would use the off-site multiplexed redo logs to be able to restore that activity, and any archive logs that have been archived in the interim period. In the next video I'll show how to restore a database using a hot backup and the current log files.